Hello everyone. Thank you for being here. I want you to imagine for a moment you know your worth. You know your high value. You feel it. You walk into a room and you recognize your light, your strength, and because you recognize that, you decide you will never tolerate some things that diminish that light, that strength, that value. So today I want to speak to every woman, and indeed to every human being who chooses to operate from a place of integrity, value, and respect, about 5 things that a high-value woman will never tolerate. Because to tolerate them is to give away pieces of your power. And you came here to hold your power, to elevate yourself, to shine. First, you will never tolerate lack of respect. Respect is not optional. If someone dismisses your thoughts, your feelings, your time, you acknowledge that and you say, no, I deserve more. When we undermine ourselves by tolerating disrespect, we let others define our boundary and we lose our own voice. Second, you will never tolerate being treated as an option. You are not the maybe, the if convenient, the whenever. You are the priority, or you graciously step back. Someone who sees you as optional sees your value as conditional. And a high-value woman knows her value is unconditional. Third, you will never tolerate emotional manipulation or control. This includes guilt trips, silent treatment, passive aggression, or being made to feel small for someone else's insecurity. You stand up, you speak out, you draw boundaries, you protect your emotional space, because your emotional well-being is not negotiable. Fourth, you will never tolerate losing your identity or integrity to please someone else. It is tempting to bend, change, hide parts of ourselves so others are comfortable. But every time you do that, you chip away at who you are. A high-value woman maintains her core, her beliefs, her voice, her ambitions. She collaborates, she connects, but she does not compromise her essence. Fifth, you will never tolerate unclear commitment when you've asked for clarity. When you speak your truth, express what you need, ask for what you deserve, and the response is vague, non-committal, hidden, then that's a red flag. High value means being aligned, authentic. It means when someone says yes, they mean yes. When they say no, they mean no. And you deserve no less. Now I want you to feel this. You are choosing yourself, not out of ego, but out of self-love. When you set these non-negotiables, you aren't being difficult. You're being discerning. You aren't punishing others. You're respecting yourself. And in doing so, you inspire everyone around you to do the same. Because the world doesn't need you to shrink. The world doesn't need you to be quiet. The world needs your voice, your presence, your power. So hold space for yourself. Let your no be elegant and your yes be wholehearted. Let your boundaries be firm and kind. And remember, when you walk with value, your presence becomes your statement. When you expect value, you set the standard. And when you refuse to tolerate what lowers your value, you protect the asset that you are. Thank you. Stand tall, speak your truth, demand your worth, and never compromise. Respect isn't just a polite word we throw around. It's the quiet foundation beneath every dream you carry, every goal you pursue, every relationship you build. A high-value woman recognizes that respect, starting with herself, forms the bedrock of how she walks in the world, how she allows others to walk with her, and how she refuses to be treated. Imagine waking each day knowing your worth isn't for negotiation. You don't wait for others to write it in your story. They read it in your posture, your eyes, your voice. When someone treats you without respect, they aren't just ignoring a norm. They are ignoring you, and you cannot build a life of integrity by accepting being ignored. In our everyday lives, the smallest acts reveal the deepest truths. Picture this. A colleague interrupts you in a meeting just as you're about to speak. You stop, you breathe, you choose to speak anyway, calmly, clearly. You're showing yourself that your words matter. You're affirming that your presence matters. Respect starts there, with you. When you value your own voice, you communicate to the world, I am here, I belong. And because you began there, you will not tolerate being treated like your thoughts don't belong. On the home front, you come home from a long day and someone dismisses your fatigue with a shrug or a just get over it. That moment matters. It's not about the fatigue alone. It's about being seen, being heard. A high-value woman stands in that moment and says, your convenience does not trump my humanity. She does not allow caring to become her sole responsibility while being dismissed herself. Respect means your feelings count. It means your rest counts. It means your boundaries count. You deserve that. The world may rush, but that doesn't give anyone license to rush past your dignity. Consider friendships or partnerships. When you invest time, thoughts, energy, you deserve more than somebody treating you like an option. Respect shows up when someone says, I hear your idea, let's walk together. It doesn't show up when they say, maybe later, if I feel like it. There's a difference between casual kindness and consistent regard. A high-value woman knows that consistency isn't perfection. It's reliability. It's showing up not just when it's easy, but when it matters. And when someone won't show up, she honors her worth enough to step back to say, I will not accept being treated like a backup plan. In the professional world, you're in a meeting, you present your ideas, but someone speaks over you, takes your words, or dismisses your contribution. That isn't just bad manners, it's disrespect. And across time, it accumulates. Disrespect in professional settings tells you your boundaries are invisible and your value is ignored. So you say, that's not my world to live in. I will demand recognition, not just for me, but for the women who come after me. You raise your standard for yourself, and in doing so, you raise the standard for those around you. When you refuse small disrespect, you refuse large ones too. Respect isn't passive. It's not something you hope for. It's something you expect and uphold. The day you decide to stop tolerating disrespect is the day you shift from being acted upon to being the actor in your life. Example. Someone consistently cancels plans last minute, doesn't apologize, treats your time like it doesn't matter. That's disrespect. You don't have to call it drama. You can simply call it truth. You say, I value my time, I value my word. My presence is not for your convenience. And you choose where you go. You choose who you allow. Respect gives you that choice. There's power in self-respect. It precedes how you let others treat you. You look in the mirror and you say, I am worthy. You walk out the door and carry that conviction. Other people will test it. Some will see the glow, some will ignore it. But your job isn't to convince them. Your job is to show up as you, to hold your ground, to live like a woman who knows she is not optional. That will shake things up. Because the world treats soft value easily, it struggles with firm value. And when you move with firmness wrapped in kindness, you become unstoppable. The ripple effect is real. When you stand for respect in one area, your body, your time, your voice, you give permission to others to stand too. Your children, your friends, your colleagues see it. They learn not from your words alone, but from your action. I will not shrink so another may not grow. I will not dim my light for someone else's comfort. Respect means I shine, and when I shine, I light the path for someone else. So you carry your daily life with this truth: my value is inherent. My boundaries are not negotiable. My dignity is non-transferable. When someone treats me without respect, they're not just misunderstanding. They're breaking the most basic rule of engagement with a human of worth. And so I will not stand there silent. I will raise my voice. I will step forward. I will walk away if necessary. Because respect is the foundation. I build everything else on its strength. Picture this moment. You wake up, sunlight streaming through your window, and you look yourself in the mirror and say, today I will be a priority to myself. That thought, simple yet radical, changes the game. Let me take you on a journey of how being your priority, not an option, shapes your life in every day, in moments both big and small. Imagine you're in your car, late for work. You've already skipped breakfast because you were helping someone else pick up their pace. Your phone buzzes, a message from someone who says they'll meet you, maybe if I'm free. You glance at the clock, sigh. That's the moment. A high-value woman recognizes If I don't give myself the time I deserve, someone else will decide whether I get it or not. So she stops, she parks, she makes a call. She says, I'll take 5 minutes. I'll have a warm tea. I'll gather myself. Because being a priority means you honor your time. Not because you're unkind or uncaring, but because you respect your own rhythm. Picture another scene. It's dinner with a friend. They've asked you again to cancel. It's okay if you come later, they say. But inside you feel, if I'm always the one who shifts, postpones, accommodates, maybe I'm becoming the option. A high-value woman realizes that if someone treats you like the afterthought, you'll eventually feel like one. The choice is, be the priority, or accept being treated like one of many. So she says, I'll come earlier, I'll clear my night because I matter, and when that choice is respected, the entire dynamic shifts. You're no longer the backup, you're the main character. In your workplace, there's a project, and someone else swoops in and takes credit. You offered support, stayed late, said yes. But when tomorrow comes, you're not called. You're treated like you were part-time. That's when you recognize the difference between being an option and being a priority. A high-value woman stands up and says, I gave my best, I showed up, now I demand to be seen. She speaks up, not angrily but firmly. She says, let's schedule a review, I'll deliver, but I'll also be recognized. She locks in the expectation, I am a priority because my contribution matters. She doesn't wait for someone else to decide her value, she asserts it. In love or companionship, imagine you text someone to say, let's talk tomorrow, and they reply with, sure, maybe later. Or they vanish for hours and you feel your chest tighten. You remember the line, never make someone a priority when all you are to them is an option. Goodreads one. That becomes your truth. A high-value woman hears that and she chooses differently. She says, if our timings don't align, if I don't feel like a considered presence in your life, then I'll step back, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. She chooses someone who makes her priority because she knows that being someone's priority doesn't feel like a question. It feels like warmth, like effort, like wonder. Think about self-care. You've got errands, kids, meetings, chores. Life is busy. You book the last time slot. You cancel the yoga class. You don't have dinner until midnight. And your mind whispers, tomorrow I'll do better. But tomorrow becomes next week, becomes next month. That's being an option to yourself. A high-value woman decides, today I'm a priority. 8 she schedules that yoga class. She eats a proper meal. She says no when something threatens her peace. Because when you treat yourself like an option, you tolerate being treated like one by others too. But when you treat yourself as the priority, everything else realigns. You remove from your table the invitations to neglect and postponement. Even in friendships, someone always asks you to drop what you're doing for them. You arrive, you accommodate, you bend. But when you say, I have commitments, I'll meet at 3, they say, oh, I'll try, and then something came up. You begin to feel, am I always last? A high-value woman realizes friendships should be reciprocal or they drain you. She chooses those who choose her. She has boundaries. She has time for her own dreams. She doesn't fit into other people's schedules. She says, if you want me, you'll carve time. If not, I'll spend it with someone who does. There's power in choosing yourself first because you set the standard. When you walk into a room, you carry the unspoken message, matter. Dear people sense the vibration of someone who is secure in their priority. They respond accordingly with attention, with respect, with care. And when they don't, when someone hears your voice, sees your schedule, ignores your presence, then you recognize you are being treated like an option. That's when you walk away. Not because of drama, but because of dignity. And yes, there will be moments when saying no to being an option feels heavy. When you won't be there always because you're choosing yourself. But that is your moment of growth. Each time you choose yourself, you are telling the universe, I'm not disposable. Me and you give others permission to treat you the way you allow. Remember this, life doesn't wait for you to reclaim your time. Everyone is busy, but if you are their priority, you will still move up. If it's a priority, you'll find a way. If it isn't, you'll find an excuse. The mind's journal too, so you decide, I will find a way for me. I will clear my schedule, create space, guard my energy because I have a right to be seen, to be heard, to matter. When you become your own priority, you transform how you enter every day. You rise with intention. You speak with clarity. You love without anxiety. You rest without guilt because no longer do you settle for being optional. You show up for yourself first. You pick up your notebook. You make your plan. You call the friend who treats you right. You set your alarm early for the workout you love. You choose lunch with your soul, dinner with your dreams. You choose partnership only if you're chosen. You choose work that honors you, not drains you. You choose love that includes you, not subtracts you. And through all this, you realize being a priority isn't selfish. It's essential. It's the only way you fully occupy your life. Protecting your emotional space is not a luxury. It's a necessity. Imagine waking up and before speaking to anyone, checking how you feel. That tiny pause becomes your shield. I will not let someone else's chaos be the rift that unsettles me. In daily life, the moment your phone lights up with, "We need to talk now," you stop. You sit. You breathe. You ask yourself, am I in the state to receive this? Will this respect my inner peace or steal it? A high-value woman draws that line. She realizes emotional space is her territory, and she guards it consciously. In the morning commute, you listen to a friend venting repeatedly on speakerphone. The emotion is raw, the frustration loud, the negativity heavy. You could stay silent and absorb it all because you care. But you know, empathy isn't permission to be drained. So you gently say, I hear you. I'll be there when you're ready to find solutions, not just express pain. That is protecting your space. You're not refusing the person. You're refusing the emotional toll. You are telling your heart, I will walk with you, not be dragged by you. At work, your boss calls you after hours with a crisis that has nothing to do with you, yet you pick it up. You respond. You stay late. You carry the tension home. The next morning, you're shaky. The caffeine doesn't take it away. A high-value woman says, no more. She sets a boundary, I will support, but I will not absorb your consistent overflow. She negotiates times, says when she's available, when she isn't. She understands that if she manages everyone's emotional storms but never calms her own, she becomes a storm survivor, not a storm rider. In relationships, the person you trust releases their own stress by dumping it on you all the time. They expect you to listen, to fix, to absorb, to adapt. You find yourself shrinking, your laughter quieter, your sparkle dimming. That's the moment you step back. You say, I will love you, but I will not be your safety valve. You draw an emotional fence. And because you draw it, you honor yourself. Because you honor yourself, you teach others how you want to be treated. There's a quote, you are not required to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. blog.innertune.com, +1 on social media. Someone attacks you, criticizes your choices, digs into your past. The flood of comments rolls in. You could respond, you could defend. You could be pulled into a rabbit hole of justification. Instead, you pause. You remind yourself your peace is more important than proving a point. You don't banish your voice, but you also don't surrender your calm. You close the tab. You turn off the notifications. You remind yourself, my emotional climate is mine to command. In the quiet of your home, a family member repeatedly crosses your line, undermining your decisions, belittling your feelings, dismissing your boundaries. The tension builds. One day you look in the mirror, you decide, I will protect my emotional space in my home more than anywhere. You speak to them. When you say that, I feel, I need, you don't attack, you communicate. Because protecting emotional space isn't barricading your heart. It's broadcasting your value. It's saying, my feelings are present, my needs are real, my inner world matters. It shows up when you say no to late night work messages, no to being the emotional dumping ground, no to absorbing someone's unhealed trauma as your own. It's in the simplicity of choosing to rest when you're weary rather than pushing through to please. It's the radical act of self-care that protects your emotional well-being so you can show up fully, not just functionally. There's wisdom in the line. Our boundaries define our personal space, and we need to be sovereign there in order to be able to step into our full power and potential. Psych Central +1. When you protect your emotional space, you create a refuge for yourself and for others. That means when you speak, you don't do it from exhaustion. You speak from presence. When you love not from depletion, but from abundance. When you rest without guilt, because you recognize your emotional stability is not expendable. It's the foundation on which you build everything else. Protecting your emotional space means choosing the company you keep. It means walking away when someone repeatedly crosses your emotional boundaries. It means acknowledging that empathy has a limit and good boundaries begin when you stop pretending there's no cost to giving. It means saying, I will be clear about how I permit you to impact me. There's a quote, when we fail to set boundaries and hold people accountable, we feel used and mistreated. blog.innertune.com +1. And so you walk into each day aware, my emotional space is not the leftovers of my energy. It is the origin of my power. You stop apologizing for withdrawing when you need rest. You stop explaining your need for peace. You stop justifying your own boundaries. Because someone's discomfort with you having boundaries is not your priority. Your priority is yourself. You'll see it in the small choices, not replying immediately to the angry text, not staying in the room where the gossip flows, not absorbing the blame when you're not the one responsible. You'll hear it in how your heartbeat slows when you decide not to engage in that emotional tug of war. You'll feel it in the relief of saying, I choose my peace. And once you protect your emotional space, you'll begin to attract people who meet you there, who respect the room you've created inside yourself. You'll stop pursuing people who drain you and start honoring people who elevate you, because your emotional space says, in here lives calm. In here lives clarity. In here lives the woman I choose to be. Maintaining your identity and authenticity means waking up every morning and whispering to yourself, I will not shrink to fit someone else's mold. It means carrying who you are and daring to show it long before someone else asks you to. Imagine walking into a room and everyone notices something luminous about you. Not because you've changed into what they expect, but because you stepped in simply being you. Every time you choose your own voice, your own path, your own story, you affirm, I am here and I matter. Consider a moment at work. You're at a team meeting and the group starts talking about projects. Someone says, let's do what everyone else has done before. It's safe. You feel that flicker inside. That's not me. Because you know your strength lies in your distinct idea, your perspective, your voice. A high-value woman chooses to speak when she has something different to say, not to fit in, but to stand out. She doesn't water down her style just so she can blend. She says, I have a suggestion. It might be unconventional, but it's aligned with what I believe. And though some may raise eyebrows, others lean in because authenticity calls out to depth. In your personal life, you may find yourself in a relationship where the partner says things like, why don't you dress like my friends? Why don't you act more relaxed? They ask you to change parts of yourself to fit their comfort. You feel the pressure. You might think, maybe if I change, I'll keep their love. But the truth you hear inside is louder. If someone loves the version of you had to change to become, then they don't really love you. They love someone you weren't. So you hold your core. You keep your laugh, your quirks, the way you move, the way you dream. You say, when you love me fully. Not the edited version. At home in the quiet moments, authenticity plays out. You enjoy a hobby that others say is odd or unusual. Maybe you paint, maybe you read old books, maybe you hike at dawn. Your family may roll their eyes. They say, why don't you pick up something easier, something everyone does? You pause. You realize every time you ignore this part of yourself to meet someone else's expectation, you chip away at the foundation of you. So you protect that part. You let it breathe. You let your identity thrive. Because when you lose yourself quietly, no one sees it until one day you're empty. But when you keep yourself alive, you bring color, you bring energy, you bring your full self into every interaction. Think about your social media feed. You scroll, you compare, you feel you must look like her, speak like him, have their photos, their vacations, their filtered life. You catch yourself mimicking. Then you ask, why am I copying when I have a story they don't have? A high-value woman steps back from that mirror of illusions and says, my story, my pace, my journey, those are mine. She posts what feels real. Maybe it's messy, maybe it's imperfect, but it's honest, because authenticity isn't glamour, it's truth. And truth resonates deeper than pixels ever will. There's power in preserving your identity when the world tells you to conform. Authenticity means you don't adopt someone else's language, values, style just because they're popular. It means you speak in your accent, wear what makes you feel alive, laugh how you feel inside. As one quote said, authenticity is a collection of choices that we have to make every day. It's about the choice to show up and be real. Bookru +1, when you make that choice daily, you no longer live by someone else's permission. You define your path. In the workplace again, the corporate culture may push you to fit in to succeed. Perhaps you notice people who raise their voices, suppress their roots, change their accents. You could follow, you could lose. Or you could say, I'll succeed as myself. Because a high-value woman knows that she doesn't need to hide her origin, her beliefs, her voice to be valid. She doesn't let the comfort of the majority dim her unique spark. She leads by example, vulnerability, clarity, authenticity, not assimilation. And yes, there are moments of fear when you choose authenticity and someone says you're too much or too little or wrong, but that's the cost of being real. It's also the gateway to freedom, because when you present yourself, warts, fears, gifts, you invite others to do the same. You say, here I am. And whether they stay or leave, you are unchanged. Because authenticity isn't contingent. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't need reassurance. It needs you. When you maintain your identity, you attract the right relationships. People who will love you not despite your truth, but because of it. People who won't say, can you change this, but will say, tell me more about you. You build a life where you're not performing to be loved, but being loved to be free. Because being someone else's version of you is exhausting. Being your version of you is empowering. Every time you choose your truth, you rewrite an invisible story. I will not sacrifice my essence for approval. Your identity, your culture, your language, your voice, your dreams deserves prominence. And authenticity gives you prominence without ego, without apology. It gives you presence. You walk into the mirror and say, this version of me, flaws, scars, brilliance, is enough. And you carry that into every decision, every conversation, every plan. You don't ask permission, you don't shrink, you don't dim, you don't hide. Because maintaining identity and authenticity means you are always whole, you are always seen, you are always true. When you demand clarity and commitment, you're declaring that your life and every relationship, venture, dream within it deserves more than hazy promises and half-hearted efforts. You wake up and say to yourself, I know what I want, and I choose to see it through. In the quiet of your morning, before the world makes its demands, you plant a seed. My intention will be clear. My action will match it. Because clarity without commitment is a whisper that drifts away. Commitment without clarity is a compass spinning in fog. Together they form your map and your path. Imagine you're at your desk, planning your next big step. You scribble goals, finances, dreams. Then someone asks, so when exactly are you starting? You pause. Because you realize you haven't defined the when, the how. You've spoken of one day. A high-value woman responds differently. She says, I will begin Monday at 8 a.m. And she sets the alarm. Why? Because clarity creates momentum. As one saying goes, when you have clarity of intention, the universe conspires with you to make it happen. AmazingTheMovement.com, you turn intention into action. That is commitment. In a relationship scenario, you and your partner talk about where this is going. He says, we'll see, you feel it, vague. A high-value woman hears the fog. She doesn't demand answers out of fear. She demands them out of respect for her time, for her heart. She asks, are we committed to each other? Is this exclusive? Are we planning a future? If the answer is murky, she says, then let's pause until it's clear. Because clarity not only reveals truth, it protects you from wasting your love in ambiguity. As one quote puts it, there's a difference between interest and commitment. When you're interested in doing something, you do it only when it's convenient. When you're committed to something, you accept no excuses, only results. Your Tango +1. On a daily note, you commit to your health, but you're vague. I'll eat better next week. You catch yourself. You change it to, starting today, I'll choose 2 vegetables at dinner and walk 30 minutes. And you set a reminder. You keep that promise. That is clarity, what exactly, and commitment, you'll do it. Without that, you drift through life enrolling in endless plans and following none. Because as one piece of wisdom says, unless commitment is made, there are only promises and hopes, but no plans. Your Tango +1. In your career, you say you want success. But what's success? A promotion? A business? A meaningful role? You define it. In 12 months, I will lead a project, learn X skill, and earn Y revenue. Then you commit. Daily tasks, networking, study sessions. When the questions are clear, the choices become easy. When the moment of should we do this arrives, your answer is anchored in clarity and backed by commitment. The clarity keeps you out of unnecessary detours. Commitment keeps you going when the detours are tough. In friendships, someone says we'll hang out sometime, but it never happens. The time slips. A high-value woman says, I value our friendship. Let's pick a date, Thursday at 7 p.m. She sends the calendar invite. She shows that friendship can be both warm and precise. Because when people match your clarity with commitment, you know they truly see you. If they don't, if the sometime keeps coming, you recognize the answer is already there. Clarity and commitment expose not just what we say, but who we are. Even with yourself, you decide you'll grow. You'll read more, meditate, learn a new language, but you never open the book. You say, when I have time. That phrasing ensures you never have time. You recalibrate, you set 20 minutes tonight before bed, you mark it on the sheet. That night you open the page. That week the routine begins. That's the difference between wanting and becoming. Clarity gives you a destination. Commitment ensures you catch the train. You'll feel it in the moments when you choose clarity over comfort. When someone says, I'll try, you ask, what do you mean by try? Because you realize that clarity rejects maybe. It demands, yes, I will, or no, I won't. And when the yes comes, you watch for action. Because commitment isn't just a spoken word. It's the consistent step forward. The quote says, commitment is an act, not a word. Your Tango +1. So you carry this magic throughout your day. Your decisions become clear. Your yes is deliberate. Your no is clean. You don't leave space for ambiguity to breed frustration. You don't stay in situations where the maybe lingers. You ask the question. You expect the answer. You honor your time, your presence, your dreams. Because you've chosen to treat your life like it's not incidental, like it's sacred. As you walk into each hour, you carry 2 companions, clarity and then commitment. Clarity shows you the path. Commitment walks it. The world might tempt you with easy confusion, fleeting promises, casual wandering, but you whisper to yourself, I am not for wandering. I am for arriving. You set your compass, you raise your standard. As you stand at the threshold of your next moment, take this with you. The secret of getting ahead is getting started. Indeed, +2, Forbes, +2, feel it in your pulse. There is no part of today that cannot be the place where you shift, where you rise, where you decide, I matter. Because you do. You've walked through storms, you've held your standards high, even when the noise around you whispered settle. And yet you stayed. You gave yourself that chance. You carried your vision even when the path seemed unclear. Because you understood the truth. Clarity isn't found. It's chosen. Now commitment calls your name. Not as a burden, but as a badge of honor. Because every time you show up for your truth, you honor yourself. Quality is not an act, it is a habit. Brainy quote, you have built habits again and again of speaking your voice, of protecting your boundaries, of being your highest self. And today you step fully into the woman who does not whisper about her worth but declares it. In the words of Winston Churchill, success is not final, failure is not fatal, it is the courage to continue that counts. Shopify +1. You are courageous. You continue. Imagine the life you are crafting. One where respect isn't something you ask for. It's something you inhabit. One where you are not the option you squeeze in between someone else's convenience. You are the priority they endeavor to align with. Build the structure, clarity in your wishes, commitment in your action, authenticity in your being. Because be yourself, everyone else is already taken. Goodreads, the world doesn't need you to blend. It needs you to stand tall in your identity, your truth, your magic. And yes, the road will twist. There will be days when you doubt, when you question, when the mirrors of others reflect your insecurities. But listen closely, you are more than every reflection you feared. You are the author of your story. Believe in yourself. You are braver than you think, more talented than you know, and capable of more than you imagine. Goodreads, walk with that in your heart. Look at the mirror again. What do you see? A high-value woman who holds non-negotiables. A high-value woman who refuses to settle for misunderstanding when she can have clarity. Who refuses to give half when she can give fully. Who refuses to live someone else's script when she has her own to write. Stand in the fire of your worth and prove not to them but to yourself that you are the standard. Let the sentences you've memorized transform into actions you've embodied. Let your decisions today echo into tomorrow. This isn't just a speech. This is a turning point. When you walk out of this moment, you walk into a new pact with yourself that you will not accept anything less than what aligns with who you truly are. You will not allow confusion where you seek direction. You will not allow dilution where you seek essence. You will show up again and again. And in that repetition, you transcend. Because the greatest triumph is not over others, but over the lesser version of yourself that once tolerated less. You root yourself in the soil of your worth. You water the garden of your dreams. You watch the bloom of your authentic life open. Say these words aloud. If you must today, I will be clear. Today I will commit. Today I will live as the priority, not the option. And feel the shift happen in your posture, your breath, your presence, for you are worthy. You are strong. You are ready. Carry on with that relentless, unwavering, unapologetic belief. And let today be the day that marks everything you will become.